Hello, hello, and welcome everyone to the American Theater Wing Masterclass Series. My name is Megan Jensen, and I'm the Director of Programs for the American Theater Wing. I'm truly so thrilled to be here with all of you today, here from my home, along with all of you joining us from across the world from your living rooms. This right now is the launch of our new initiative at the American Theater Wing, featuring our first Masterclass artist, Tony, Grammy, and Emmy Award-winning actress, Cynthia Erivo. And joining us in conversation is American Theater Wing President and CEO, Heather Hitchens. I want to thank both Cynthia and Heather for being here to welcome over 1,000 attendees who are joining us here from home. It's unbelievable to have you in this record-breaking moment. Before we dive into this incredible conversation with Cynthia, I'd like to take a moment to give a very brief overview on our new Masterclass series. Educating and empowering the next generation of theater professionals has long been central to the Wing's mission through our education and professional development programs. As part of our national COVID-19 response effort, the American Theater Wing Masterclass series was established to continue our educational commitment to theater students, young professionals, and people just like you joining us today. As attendees, you will hear and learn from the titans of the theater, such as Cynthia and her journey through this industry and the many and vast ways there are to finding your way in the business as an artist and a professional. Never before have we had the opportunity to reach this many people across the globe in such an intimate way from our homes to foster this supportive and creative community. We are so lucky to have you all join us here today. This masterclass is entirely for your benefit, all of you joining us. We've received your incredible questions in advance, and we so appreciate them. Though, with 1,000 questions, we definitely could talk for weeks on end, so we did our best to consolidate them. And now it's my ultimate pleasure to turn the conversation over to our Wing President and CEO, Heather Hitchens, along with Tony, Grammy, and Emmy Award-winning actress, Cynthia Erivo.
Thank you so much, Megan, and thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I'm just beyond thrilled that we have so many people gathering in the way that we can gather right now to celebrate the hope of live theater and what live theater means to all of us. Live theater will be back, and we will be back with it. But in the meantime, we carry on. So, December 10th, 2015, Color Purple opens on Broadway. I am privileged enough to be in the audience. I had had a horrible day. And it was one of those days where you just, you want to give theater as an audience member all of your energy. And I was afraid that I wasn't going to have it. And then you walked on stage, you opened your mouth, and you changed my life. You changed your life. You changed everyone's life. You healed me. And I had more energy than I'd had in a very long time. And I wept. I flooded the aisle out. And of course, the content of Color Purple would make you weep. But having, been side by side and worked with artists over many years, I know how hard it is to move forward in this crazy industry and career. And I saw somebody change their trajectory overnight. And I was just so happy for you. And so when the Tony nominees lunch came rolling around, I said, please, 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 can I sit next to her? And that began the journey of us getting to know each other. Cynthia, you are an absolutely extraordinary artist, and you're an extraordinary humanitarian. You define what it means to be a good citizen of the field. And, I do a lot of talks, and the American Theater Wing works with young people quite a bit. And a lot of students just want a formula. What are the 3 things I have to do to succeed? And I think those of us who've been, around a little bit longer know that it just doesn't go that way. And life is very rarely linear. And life zigs and zags. It's in those zigs and zags that you find the creativity and the opportunity. So tell us about the zigs and zags of your journey.
I discovered theatre when I want to say I was 11, and there was this cool theatre program that was only for a couple of weeks, and it was taking young kids to come in and experience what it was to perform and to do theatre, and I worked with them for a little bit and sort of got the bug for telling stories. I loved the idea that I could tell stories, sing the songs I wanted to sing and become someone else and put my energy into that. And I was only 11, and so I didn't know how that would change my life, but it sort of was the pattern for what I was experiencing as I was getting older. And then when I was 15, a woman who I call one of my mentors, Ray McKen, put me in a program. She accepted me into her program that she was running at the Young Vic. And what the Young Vic would do, which is a cool theatre in the UK, Young Vic would take whatever performance was going on in the main theatre and make us like a youth production of it. So in the main theatre at that time, the production was Romeo and Juliet. And there was a long line of teenagers coming to audition to be a part of this summer program whereby they would rehearse, do this truncated version of the Shakespeare play, Romeo and Juliet. And by the end of it, you would put on a performance for people, a paid performance that people would come and watch you do. And I auditioned, not really expecting very much, to be honest, but I auditioned because I loved the play and I loved the idea of being a part of it, and got the role of Juliet. And so I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this. This is amazing. And I just remember having the most amazing experience, because I guess it was sort of my first foray into like understanding and learning how to speak the language of Shakespeare. And it was also the first time I realized that someone who looked like me could be a part of Shakespeare, because I hadn't seen it before. And so I remember I had pink and black braids, box braids, that were like down to my waist. And she said, don't change that. You should keep that hair. It's amazing and it suits you and it works for Juliet. And someone sent me a picture just recently of me at the age of 15 on stage as Juliet. And I was beside myself because I was like, I can't believe that is where it started. And I did the normal thing. I went to high school, which for us is secondary school, and college, and didn't really know that I could do anything further than that. So I thought I had to go to university and do a course, and I wanted to try and make sure that the course had something to do with the love that I had for music and performing. And so I picked something like music psychology, which I guess is the study of the way in which music affects the mind and how we communicate. But it wasn't stimulating me in the way I needed it to or wanted to. And I knew it wasn't quite right. So I left university and went to do this cool young actors company at a theatre called Stratford Theatre Royal. And on the first day, this is like 5 years later, I'm 20 years old at this point. The first day, I was in the ticket office in the foyer, and I didn't know who was taking the class. But Ray walks in again, and I hadn't seen her for 5 years. Ray walks in, I asked what she's doing, and she said, I'm taking this class. It's for the Young Actors Company. I said, I'm doing the Young Actors Company. Will you be teaching us? She said, yes. Have you been training? Have you signed up to go and train? Are you finding, I didn't know what she meant by train. I was like, well, train for what? How? No. And she was like, well, I think you should train. I think you should go to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, the RADA. And I was like, I don't know what that is. And she said, it's a drama school, place where you can learn your craft and hone your skills as an actor. And I was like, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to get in. There's no way. I'm not doing it. She wouldn't let me be a part of the class until I applied to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. She said I had to go up to her office, apply to the school before I could get to be a part of the class that I was signed up for that day. So I go up to her class, I go up to her office, she works through the application form with me and then proceeds to start working through the pieces. Because you have to do 4 different auditions. For me, I had to do 4 different auditions. The first audition, which is like one piece, and an interview. The second audition, which is a piece or 2 pieces and an unaccompanied song. And the third is like a group audition. And the fourth is like your final audition. I didn't audition for anywhere else, probably because I was being stubborn. because I didn't think I would get in. And the first time I got a call back, every time I sort of got more and more invested. And then the second time you get more invested. And the third time you're like, oh, is this going to work? And the fourth time you're like, I hope I get in. And I remember I did my last audition on a Friday. And on Saturday morning, I got a call from the artistic director of RADA to say that I had gotten in. And I asked him if he was sure. I asked him if he was sure that I was in, and he said, yes, I'm sure. Would you like to come to the school? I was like, yes, I would. And it sort of like began this journey of discovery of who I am and what kind of actor I want to be and the kind of stories I want to tell. And to say that it went swimmingly from then is just not the truth. There are times where, you know, my first show out of RADA was a small play in Brighton, which is a little city outside of the UK. It's of London. It's 20 minutes outside of London on a train. And you go there for like little holidays if you can, but it's not really a theatre town. And there's like a small theatre community there. But I was just pleased to have my first play. And that was where I started. Theatre really was my beginning. And Colour Purple came much later. I played with the English Touring Theatre, then did another show. That's when I did Sister Act. And Sister Act for me was like the biggest thing I had done. And it was the world to me because I didn't know that I would get something like that at that time. I think I want to say I was like 24 or 25 when I had that. And was so excited. I toured the UK for, I want to say 12 months, 13 months with Sister Act. And when I came back, I had heard that The Colour Purple was coming. And for some reason, I just knew that was the thing I was supposed to be doing. I just knew in my gut that was where I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to be doing. I have no idea why. I don't know what about it was calling to me, but I knew that was a story that I was meant to be a part of. And so I fought to be seen. I fought to be a part of it. I fought to audition, and didn't audition, didn't hear for about a couple of months. Apparently there were things going on with it that they couldn't figure out. And then they did. And I got this call whilst I was doing a small play at the Soho Theatre to say that I had got the part. And that just sort of changed my life, really. The Colour Purple just was the beginning of what you are meeting now. It was just a small play in a theatre called the Menier Chocolate Factory with 200 seats. Not many people, but it just changed everything. And then they decided that they wanted to do that version on Broadway. And that's the version you saw, Heather. That's what you saw. And that was my very first time doing a Broadway show, doing anything at that magnitude. And I remember that first show, the opening, and feeling like something had shifted, something was different. And so it felt very,
inside of you?
Inside of me, yeah. It felt like this was, when all the pieces fit together. That's what it felt like, yeah.
Well, of course, the number that gets the incredible standing ovation every night, I'm here.
Yeah.
So maybe it was I am here.
Of the I'm here,
yeah. Well, I mean, that's an extraordinary journey, and I think so important for people, especially young people entering the business, to hear that there's just no guarantees, and you have to stay at it, and you kind of never know when the opportunity, going to come your way. You've been incredibly successful. So 2 questions. One is, what do you attribute your success so far to? And
go on, sorry.
And I think you're still very young. So where do you want to go?
I would say that the success is due to being tenacious, determined, and making sure that I have people around me that love me and care, and when it doesn't go quite right, that they're there to encourage as well. Because it hasn't always been perfect. Before I before I came over to the States to do Color Purple, I barely had anything in my bank account. I was riding across London on a bike to get to like a sales rep job, you know, just because I didn't have anything in my pocket, and I wanted to make sure that I could still do what I wanted to do. And, you know, it isn't always going to be easy, but that should never stop you from wanting to keep going. Because when it does happen, it's all the more sweet. So I would say that the reason I'm successful is because I rarely take no for an answer. I keep going, and I keep working, and I keep practicing. I don't think I'm ever not going to be a student. I think I'm always going to be learning. This year particularly has been a year of firsts. But my life in general is consistently firsts and new things that I'm having to learn and relearn and understand. And I think that if you keep that side of you, that the side of curiosity and the want to learn alive, you're always going to find new and interesting things to be a part of, and new and interesting ways to better yourself in your craft. And I think that's probably what's kept me going.
Yeah, I think it's the notion of being a lifelong learner. And I would say that's true on my side of the business as well, to just keep on learning, keep on growing, keep on pushing. So I have a lot of questions, and I also want to talk a little bit about craft. This is a master class. So let's talk specifically about your process and how you choose roles and how you enter roles.
Yeah. I choose roles by, I'm lucky enough to now get scripts, to read them. And I look for a woman I haven't met before. I look for a story that hasn't been told before. I look for faces I don't get to see very often, complexity in these people. I look for fully rounded, thought out, thoughtful people. They don't have to be good or bad. I don't mind if it's a villain or not. I just want them to be real. And yeah, meaty and full. And I have no judgment on who they are, just as long as they have something and they are something. And that's what I look for. And then whether or not it's a challenge, if it scares me a little bit, then it's probably the thing I should be doing. If I'm like, oh, I can do that with my eyes closed, then I probably shouldn't be a part of it, because I don't think I'll learn anything from it. I always want to be a part of something that teaches me as I'm doing it. Yeah.
And so how do you prepare for a role? Is it different for theater versus film, or is it the same process?
I think it's different from role to role. I'm not sure it changes. I mean, we're lucky because with theater you get weeks of rehearsal beforehand, but I think it's really about sort of discovering the wants and needs of whoever you might be playing. And I don't think that necessarily that doesn't change from role to role. It really is about finding out who they are and what they want. But depending on the type of person they are, you might have to prepare slightly differently. For Celie, it meant that I wanted to find her body. I always want to find the movement of a person. And for Celie, it really was about, how does she move? How does she stay out the way? How does she protect herself? How does she speak? Does she speak quietly, or how fast? Is it, I knew that there are things that she would have to do in order to keep herself safe and stay out of the way, because a lot of her want is to be invisible so that she doesn't get hurt. And then how do you grow from that and change that and become someone who is visible? And that works for the same, it's the same for other roles. It's about finding out who they are and what they want, and do they listen to music or do they not? Do they prefer silence? You take Celie, who I believe loves music. It's something that I think broke her open. But Holly, who I just played on a series, hates music. I think it's too much for her brain to comprehend. Like, it's noise for her. And so you figure out what that looks like in a person. I think each person is a new book waiting to be opened and read and understood. And you can never really understand them until you sort of like coming to the end of it, because you build up as you learn their story. Yeah.
You do. I read somewhere that you do a lot of research. Like for Harriet, you did a tremendous amount of research.
Yeah. Well, if you're working with a real live person, you have the privilege of looking at real things that happen to them. There's written works, there are pictures, there's sometimes footage. I lean on that heavily because it's helpful, to find out what their rhythms were, find out how they spoke, find out what they believed, find out how they would say things, find out, what they enjoyed. And some of it may never make it onto the screen, but it's just nice to know. Like, I don't know that anyone knew that Harriet loved strawberries and fine china, but she did. And the way they realized that is they would find strawberry pips everywhere in her home and china all over the place. So to know that someone like that really enjoyed like the daintier things adds something to it. It's just nice to know. Yeah.
Extraordinary. I mean, obviously the difference between live theater and film is that anything can happen in live theater and there are no retakes. So do you have an example of something that happened to you in a show and in real time, and how you dealt with it?
I mean, this is two moments. There was I was doing a play called The Three Musketeers and the Princess of Spain, or something like that, random, at the English Touring Theatre. And my partner, who was playing D'Artagnan, just decided to, like, we had practiced the fight, and he sped everything up on stage, but didn't tell me that we were speeding anything up. And so I'm just reacting as I can. And so, people are, by the end of it, that looks so real, it was so convincing, and no one's realizing that I genuinely was petrified because I had no idea that we were going to go at that speed. And so I'm really having to make sure that my reactions are as on time as they possibly can, so I don't get hit with a sword, because we're sword fighting on stage. Things like that. And when I've forgotten a lyric on stage, and you sort of just, and sometimes I just wait till the lyric comes back, and then you continue. Sometimes you have people who are recording in the audience, and a phone goes off. And this was the day of the Tonys, actually. So day of the Tonys, already it's a very long day, because I woke up at 5, was picked up, we had to go to the theatre, we do rehearsals, we go back to our theatre to do our show, and then you get ready after the show, and then you come back to the theatre to do the Tonys. So we've done the rehearsals in the morning, and everyone is exhausted, and I get to the stage, we're doing the show, and there's a moment on stage where I think it was me and Isaiah who played Mr., and a phone goes off. And I hear the phone, and it just keeps ringing and ringing. And it stops me in my tracks, and I can't think of the next line, because all I can hear is the phone ringing. And so I, in character, turn out to the audience and ask if the person's going to pick up the phone. Are you going to pick that up? Everyone, because it releases the tension. Because when phones ring, sure, everyone gets really tense and is like, oh, is the phone going to stop ringing? When is it going to stop ringing? Are they going to pick it up? Are they going to not say anything? And then, because you sort of break forth, we'll ask them if they're going to pick it up. Still as Celie, everyone sort of a whole breath happens, and people laugh, and then the phone stops ringing, and I go straight back into the line. And the line comes back immediately, and we go right back into the next scene. And it's one of those moments where it was just like pure reality. It's happening as it's happening. But those things those are things that happen. You just sort of have to be in the moment. And if you're in the moment, anything can happen.
And do you keep yourself calm in those moments, knowing that you'll figure it out, and just trusting the people that are on stage with you?
You have to, because the one thing you all you have is yourself and your castmates. And if you trust them enough, anything like that, you will be fine. And everyone will make it either a wonderful moment, or you'll find a way to keep moving past it and make it good for everyone. Yeah. And the only thing you can do is stay calm, because if you panic, it just makes everything much worse.
So being on stage and entering these roles is obviously incredibly demanding, and to give yourself emotionally to bring this person, this character to life. So what are your daily practices? How do you keep your instrument in shape when you're working and in between? And has that changed during this pandemic?
If you have a jump rope, that's really good for you, because I like physical activity. It helps me. I feel like my body really is a combination. What I do is really a bodily experience. So for me, I want to keep my body well and ready and alive and moving. So I work out, and the way I do that, so I don't have to take up too much space if I don't want to go anywhere, is I have a jump rope, and I think many of you may have seen me using a jump rope. It's my favorite thing because you can take it everywhere, and you only need a small amount of space to do it in. Or I do some body weight at work. I sing something every day, just because I want to make sure that my voice knows it's not time to go to sleep. I don't want it to sleep. I want it to, even though we're in this, and I've still been singing during this, but the best way for me is to keep it alive, to keep it moving. The only time I don't use it is when I'm sleeping, or when I'm resting. And the best way to do it is do a nice little warm up, keep it really simple, keep it really easy, sing a song that's easy to sing, and keep going. Like do something every day, just to keep the mind going, because I think it's a really important thing to do. I listen to music, I read books. I'm lucky enough to keep reading scripts, but you could also read scripts. There are scripts online, there are scripts. I think you could probably, you can find most scripts online, or if you Amazon a book that happens to be a script, you can do that. I think you can get most of August Wilson's plays from Amazon, so do that. It's just about keeping, it's like a mind, body, for me, soul and voice. It's a holistic thing. I try and eat well, and when I'm working, when I'm on stage, and when I'm really on screen, really, I don't go out very often at all. So I use the time that I'm not on stage to really repair, because it's a lot of work. And by the end of it, you don't realize how tired you are until the end of the week, and how much you've done until the end of the week, because that's when you feel it. And so I try to take the time to really relax, find ways to meditate, lie on the floor and just breathe. There's ways to really release tension in you, when you can. Get something to roll out with, because that's really good for all over the body, to be honest. Even if you're not necessarily working out, you are if you're on stage consistently, and you don't realize where you're carrying the tension until you like hit a point that hurts or feels odd. Yeah, there's those different ways, but that's how I do it. Yeah.
A big part of your job is collaboration, collaboration with your fellow actors on stage, collaboration with the writers, collaboration with the directors. What do you feel that the secret is to being a good collaborator, on stage and behind the scenes?
Listening. Yeah, the best way. I think you'll get the most out of being on stage or being with a partner, in creation. I would say that, if you listen, because I think listening and paying close attention mostly to what that person needs and wants will tell you what you need to do. It will tell you how you have to respond. And to collaborate, it really is a back and forth. So I don't need to necessarily pay attention to what I'm doing, as long as I'm paying close attention to what this person in front of me is doing, because then I know it gives me enough information to give back, is what I'm trying to say. I think that is the best way to work with others, is to be selfless, I guess. Yeah.
That's interesting. And you talked earlier about reading scripts and books. Is there a particular piece of art now of any kind that's inspiring you?
Do you know what, I've actually been looking at art. There's a wonderful artist called Harmonia, and she does these beautiful paintings that I've been looking at, and I've been starting to read Toni Morrison and James Baldwin as well, some of their works, just because they're inspiring and complicated and nuanced and different. And I feel like those are really great ways to keep my mind going. And then I was just told about a book called Wild Seed, which is by Octavia Butler. So I've been told to have a look at that. So I'm going to be getting that today because I want to see what that is, what that feels like, what that looks like. I'm always open to finding new books and new works. Yeah.
So this is like a continuation of the theme that we were talking about earlier, being a lifelong learner, being curious so that you constantly stimulate your creativity, and then taking all of that experience on stage with you in terms of embodying whatever character you're charged with bringing to life. So we talk about your journey and where you've been, but you never answer the question, that where else do you want to go? Because you know what, you're still young. So what else do you want to do?
Yeah, I want to create. I want to be a part of the beginning of making new pieces, and both on stage and on film. I'd love to direct at some point in my life. I think producing is probably going to come first, so I can be at the beginning and I get to watch and work with other writers and other directors to put pieces forward. But I'd love to direct in the end and to start working with other actors and figuring out how to tell stories for them too. Yeah, I think it's about creating. I think I've really enjoyed and still enjoy and will still enjoy being a part of telling a story from the inside, as in being the character and playing the character. But I do think being able to make something from scratch would be really rewarding for me. Yeah.
Through the American Theatre Wing's education programs, we work with a lot of young women, and women right now in our society are struggling, and how they're portrayed and how they're viewed and how they're treated. And I imagine, you know, in your journey, you've encountered some challenges along the way, being a woman, and particularly a woman of color. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you've overcome those challenges?
For particularly women of color, there is this idea that there is one or two types of women of color, and it doesn't. Sometimes this business doesn't leave a lot of room for the varied, complicated, different types of women that we are. And what I would say to that is to stand really strong in who you are. Don't let what other people believe that you are shift that and move you to become something else. Because I think the one thing that I have been lucky with, and probably has kept me going, as well as determination, as I said before, is the fact that I'm really, really sure about who I am. That has not changed since I was, at the beginning. And yes, we learn and we grow, but I as a person have not changed. And I enjoy who I am. And so I give that. And if that is not enough, I'm okay with that. I don't think, I often believe that if it's me you want, it's me you'll have. If it's someone else, then that is for someone else. And that seems to have helped. And it makes the sting of no's way less painful.
It's funny because I think this is true for everything, you know, whether you're on stage or behind the scenes, like getting comfortable in your own skin. It's like saying, I am enough. And if I'm not enough, then I'm not the right person for this.
Exactly. And that's okay. And that's okay.
No.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And I'm okay. And I think it's a huge thing for young people, no matter what profession they're pursuing, but certainly, yes, if they're going to pursue the profession of acting, and to get to that point, which is a very hard place to get to. You know, I think when we look at theater and live theater, we have a long way to go in terms of diversity and inclusion, and we need to tell the stories of all the people that make up our society. And, you know, one of the fears that I keep hearing repeated over again, and I have the fear as well, is that when live theater comes back after the pandemic, we're going to lose progress on diversity and inclusion, that we were going to potentially go backwards. And I want to make sure, and I know you have thoughts on this. How do we keep moving forward and building a truly inclusive theater? I know you have thoughts on the subject.
genuinely, I think that the way to make sure that we keep making progress is to make sure that the conversation where at the top, where we discuss what shows happen and what we see, includes everyone, that it isn't just all the white men, that it is women of color, it is LGBTQ, it is all of these facets of our society and of our world, that someone is represented in some way, so there is someone to go, that show only has one Black person in it, or that show only has one Indian person in it, or this show has no LGBTQ people in it, and that's not representative of what we're trying to do. And so that there's always someone to go, hey, we've maybe seen this before, let's maybe try something else. Because I think if we're only listening to the same people consistently, we're going to get the same thing. But if we open it up so that there are people who know what this world is like, who have been a part of it and who want to be a part of it, who you want to hear from, those people whose voices you don't see on stage but are part of the community, you invite them in, then they get to speak and they get to have a voice, and we get to see those things and we get to hear about it. And that way we probably will keep moving forward, because those voices have been a part of the conversation at the beginning, because that's really where it starts.
It's about being at the table, and I think the thing is, it's in addition to this being about social justice, and it's definitely about social justice, it's also about pure economics, and this is good business. So if you look at the demographics and how they're changing, we need to reflect on this on our stages. Yes, it's about social justice and what's right, but it's also we need to produce work for audiences. We need to build audiences that can respond to the work and can see themselves on stage. And so, you've been so passionate on this subject as I have, and we've had a number of conversations. But I think we're going to have to really be on guard and hold firm to keep progress moving forward, to keep making sure we keep moving forward.
It's something I'm really, really passionate about. I just because I know what the potential is to have shows that just feel different and look different and include more people, and I'm just really passionate about it, and Heather knows that, and you know that very well. And yeah.
Well, one of the things I think is so important is that diversity is not a destination. It's not like we have arrived, we're done, because people are constantly changing. We have to continually be expansive, in our thinking and our embrace. I mean, just most recently in LGBTQ plus, things are changing, and we need to keep up with those changes. We constantly have to be expansive in our community and not be like, oh, well, we're there, that's it. It's just so important because, there are a lot of young people with us from, all over the world today, and they want to know, am I going to be able to work? Are there going to be roles for me? Are there things that am I going to be able to make a living in the business? And so if you had to sum up your advice for young people entering this industry, what are the main points of advice you would have for them?
I think I would say to find out who you are and be confident in it. And when I say do the work, I mean practice. I mean keep learning and read the books, read the scripts, find out who you want to, what kind of roles you want, and be clear about that, so that you're not consistently shifting and trying to, being swayed by other people, so that you know who you are and it feels solid, and be open. Always be a listener and be open. Yeah. If you keep learning, and you keep learning, and you find that, and you're confident in who you are, I think those things will carry people quite far. Yeah.
So we're going to go to some questions from our patient participants here, and here's a question from Gina, who asks, how do you get through the rough moments in your life and your career, and where do you find the confidence during those hard times?
I guess I've always known that that I was supposed to be doing this. And so when it has gotten rough, the knowledge that I'm not at my destination yet, and that I have some space to go and I have some ways to go, but I'm moving in the direction that is right for me, has kept me going. It might not be, it's the idea that it might not be easy now, and I might not be where I want to be now, but that doesn't mean I won't get there, you know? I don't know why, but I always have this this memory in my head, and it is of me riding across London from the east to the south on a Brompton bike, because I didn't have enough money to get on the underground, and I didn't have enough money to get a travel card to get to work. But at the same time, like, knowing that me doing that meant that I would get a little bit of money in my purse to go and see a show or to keep moving myself forward. It meant that I was doing the thing that was going to eventually move me forward. And there are ways to also keep yourself positive. What, outside of the work, like, what are the things that keep you whole as a person? What are the things that make you happy? Is it baking? Is it knitting? Is it listening to music and dancing around the house? I know that for me, I get a lot of joy from putting on some music and just dancing like there's no one there. Like, that's just what sometimes I do when because it lifts my spirits. It's about finding the things that genuinely lift you, and knowing that you might not be where you are right where you want to be, but if you're doing the things that are right for you, you will get there, and that should give you some hope. It did for me. Yeah.
That's fantastic, and I think, you know, we all have to find things. And Latanya Richardson, who does a workshop for our Springboard participants every year, always says to them, you know, you got to find a place for the crazies, because the crazies are coming for you. And so it's like, right, so what is it for you? Is it music? Is it yoga? Is it meditation? You know, is it long walks? Is it running? And so now we have a very specific question for you, that is, what specific vocal exercises do you do before you sing? And how do you warm up? And do you warm up your entire body or just your voice?
I do warm up my entire body as well as my voice, because I think that if my body is warm, the throat and the neck are made up of muscle. And so if they're not warm, they house your vocal cords. And if that is not warm, your vocal cords can't move as well as they should. That is what I believe, and that's what works for me. There are two simple things that I like doing. Joan Lader is my vocal coach, who I love, and Joan Lader is amazing. And if you don't know about her, find out about her. She's incredible. But there are two things that she used to do, and it's basically to take the pressure off the vocal cords to find out how it's working. So I would always do a trill, which is, because that tells me what I have, and then I would have a straw and some water, and I'd blow bubbles in a straw and do a scale, so that you're essentially putting all the pressure on your lips and in the water, so you get a V sensation, I guess. So it'd be like is what I would do if I didn't have a straw and water, and just wakes everything up, really. And then you can do little scales, and I hum. You can change it to different vowels. Just to find out if everything is there and everything's working. And for me, it opens everything up. It even opens up the speaking voice. It opens up my chest. Breathing is really good. And so that's kind of a quick thing. I never warm up for longer than like 20 minutes. Anything more than that is like doing a full song, and you don't need to do that. If you warm up for an hour, that's a show. You don't need to do a show before you do a show.
Are there any other rituals that you do before you get on stage?
I always say a prayer. I always say a prayer before I go on. It could be a short prayer, it could be a long prayer, but I always say one, because it helps me center. I always get nervous before I go on stage, and my heart goes like this, and I can feel it through my clothes. And so I just take a breath, say a prayer.
Is it true, though, that the day that you're not nervous, that's not a good thing?
For me, yeah.
And so you just convert that nervousness into energy. Is that how it works for you?
My nervousness doesn't debilitate me. So my nervousness for me is an indication that I really care about what's happening. You know, the day I'm like, that means I don't care. If it like, I don't think there are ever going to be no nerves. It doesn't matter how I've been singing my whole entire life, and still, before I do something, I'm nervous every time. Every time.
I just think that's so important for young people to hear. I was, coughed up out of a music conservatory where the training was all about containing your nerves, controlling your nerves. And, the truth be told is that you need a little nervousness. And that's where the creativity comes from. That's where the growth comes from. So I have a question that's about range. And the question is how do you get such range from your characters? And I think Color Purple is a perfect example because Celie starts so small and she becomes so big towards the end. And how do you accomplish that? How do you pace yourself for that?
You accomplish that, but I guess that's practice and being open to whatever the character needs. It wouldn't have made sense for Celie to stay in the same place the whole way through. It's allowing yourself to be affected by the material and affected by the script, affected by the words people say, affected by what happens to this character. That's really where it comes from. I study other actors, I study other work. There are films I watch all the time, just because I love being able to give something as detailed as I possibly can. And I'm still learning, that is what I think, but that just comes from, I think it comes from really paying attention to what the character is given. That's, for me, where the range comes from. It's about paying attention to the details that this person is given, what someone says, when it was said, how it was said, where they have to move, how fast they have to get to this place. There's a wonderful thing that happens with time in The Color Purple where she starts really small, but everything is quick. Even she's got like quick songs, even the songs are fast. So I feel like that is an indication that she moves fast. She's quick. She's like a mouse. She's got to get somewhere really quickly and efficiently. And then towards the end, the music becomes sort of like open and languid and vast. Even I'm Here is like, it's a long, there are 3 parts to I'm Here. I don't think people read. There's that first part, then there's the I'm Gonna, and then there's the bit towards the very end. It's big and it's wide, and that means that it sort of is an indication that she is bigger and wider. She can take up more space now. I think that's information that you have to be willing to hear, and take on. That's basically what I do.
In that moment, certainly on opening night, you don't know what the reaction is going to be. You had done previews and things, of course, but when you know that's the reaction, how does that affect you?
So what I tried to do is forget that it happens every night. I had to forget because I didn't want to ever expect it. And so that when it happened, it was always a surprise. And my only job at that moment is to allow everyone to experience what they're experiencing and move the story forward. Like I can sit and languish in it if I want to, but that's not helpful. It's not helpful. You take a minute, you acknowledge that it's happening. You take a second, let everyone have it out of their systems, and then you give them an indication that it is time to move forward. And for me, it was like, I'm turning around now and I'm going to walk away. And this is how I'm telling you that we are moving forward. And that for me is, I think, the least selfish way of experiencing that moment. Yeah, that's what you do. It's finding, if you have an inkling that something is that is happening and is going to happen, you just take the time to make sure that you find out what the best way of moving it forward is, not finding out how to experience it, because that's not your job. You can experience it afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're continuing to tell the story regardless of what's happening. And we're coming to the end of our time here, and this has just flown right by, and you have so much to share and so much to tell. And we're all living in this incredibly, incredibly difficult time. But I want to end on a hopeful note. We're all quarantined in our homes, and yet we're connecting. and we believe live theater is coming back. And when it does come back, what is your hope for the live theater?
I hope that people understand how special it is, and how singular it is, and what a sacrifice it is for someone to be brave enough to put themselves in front of people in that way is. Because I think up until now, people haven't really realized how much life it brings, how much sound and color and light it brings to people's lives, and that we are better off with it. And I hope that people begin to really genuinely appreciate what we as a community bring and what we do, because it's not easy, and you have to make a choice to do this work. And when you do it with all your heart, because you have to do it that way. Yeah. So I hope people start to really understand that that is what it is. Yeah.
And I hope that people understand everything that you said, and also understand that the arts are more powerful than any other sector. Everything that we touch, we improve, whether it's reducing crime, improving education, uplifting people, and improving the economy. This is what the arts do. And they do this in good times and bad. And I just hope people understand that live theater, across the country needs to be sustained right now, because we're going to need live theater when things open up again. We need live theater to help, restaurants and other local businesses and, parking lots and everything that, live theater is, central to our soul and central to our economy. The arts are the heart and soul of our society, and they're also how we move the needle forward in terms of social justice and understanding. And when you think about works like Angels in America and how that helped change how the LGBTQ community was perceived, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. We need to keep live theater going forward, because it is one of the last places where we have an actual dialogue, that we listen, and that that change is possible as a result of taking the same journey together. Well, thank you so much for being here, Cynthia, and thank you everyone from around the globe for joining us this evening. The American Theater Wing is a not-for-profit organization, and we sustain ourselves on charitable contributions. If you're in a position to make one, please visit americantheaterwing.org and click on the donate button. If you're not in a position to donate, we understand these are difficult times, but when we release this masterclass on Facebook and YouTube, we would so appreciate it if you would share it and comment it and spread the joy of live theater. Thank you so much.